Hey everybody, what's going on? It's PT, and what a crazy year we've had in 2020. As we come to the close of this year, many of us stood on this day probably about 1 year ago, maybe, last Sunday of 2019, and we had so much to say about what God was going to do and how God was going to bless and all of the plans that we had in store for this year. And then, womp womp, we ended up going through what we've gone through. For many of us, this time is not meant all of the promise and all the plans and all the goals that we've set being fulfilled. And it's the temptation during moments like this, in times like this, that are historic like this, that you're tempted to give up and quit. Well, I want to tell you today, that's not who you are. You are not a quitter. You do not give up. Delay does not mean denied. And simply 2020 was a time, I believe, of shaking as far as the church is concerned, and as far as shaking anything and everything that isn't founded on a solid foundation. But just because it's shaken doesn't mean that it's not going to come to pass. Just because everything that you thought would happen in 2020 didn't happen doesn't mean God isn't going to bring it to pass. See, I simply believe that in moments like this, in times like this is the greatest expression of our faith. For many people of faith in this season, you said you believed and you said you had faith, but when all of this took place, you actually gave up. Your commitment to the goal, to the dream, to the vision, it was a commitment, all right. It was a commitment until life happened. And for millions, billions around the world, life happened all at one time. But there is an answer that we have to life that allows us to keep dreaming, to keep driving, and to keep moving, even in the midst of a pandemic, even in the midst of trying times. And that's faith. I simply believe times like this, your faith is needed even more. I have been stuck in this thought process over the past month, or even more, about continuing to believe. That right in the middle of everything, you have to keep believing. I love the way Jesus put it in Mark chapter 9, verse 23, when the man approached him about healing his son. And he said, "Hey, Jesus, if you could heal my son, do so." And Jesus is like, "What do you mean if?" He says, if you're able to believe, all things are possible. That if is the same if that he's saying to us. That right in the middle of negative doctor's reports, that right in the middle of financial issues, that right in the middle of unemployment and marriage issues, and all of the things that were going on, he's saying, if you believe, you'll watch a miracle take place. You'll watch something be transformed in your life that you've never experienced before. See, for every test, there is a testimony, but the test only becomes a testimony when we continue to believe that God's going to come through. So I want to encourage you as we are closing out 2020, and I don't know what you're walking through. I don't know what you've been through to get to this day, but the simple fact that you are breathing, the simple fact that you are still living is evident that God's not done, that He's not through. And maybe, just maybe, it was your faith that got you to this point. And it's your faith and your belief in God that's going to get you over. So join in with me as we close out this year. Do a couple of things for me. Number one, be grateful that no matter what you've walked through, no matter how difficult it's been, you're still standing. Be grateful. Make a gratitude list. Sometimes I make a gratitude list just so I can put in front of my eyes all the things that God has done, because sometimes in my mind it all becomes fuzzy, especially when you're walking through difficulties and pain. Number two, keep believing in the dream. Keep believing in the vision. Keep believing in the goal that you set. I said earlier, delay does not mean denial. And sometimes when tests come, they test to see how committed you are and how much you really believe in what's out in front of you. And the third and final thing is say over yourself, to yourself, I'm more than a conqueror. Say over yourself and to yourself, that I am an overwhelming victor, that I am a champion. As we're in this last week of 2020, let me give you this piece of advice. Keep believing. I know some things didn't happen the way you wanted. They didn't turn out the way you liked in this year. But I want to encourage you, keep believing. When it seems impossible, keep believing. When it seems unthinkable, keep believing. When you're down to your last dollar, keep believing. When you're down to your last breath, keep believing. As long as there is breath in your body, God can do the impossible, the unthinkable. All you got to do is keep believing. I know it's tough, I know it's difficult, but you have everything in you to make it past this moment. God's greatest gift, His Spirit, is within you. You have the ability and the power within you to make it past this moment if you don't give up. The only thing that God can't work with is when you quit. Don't let fear, don't let anxiety, don't let worry keep you from getting what God has for you. Keep believing, and you will see God do the miraculous in your life. Come on, let's get it.